I seriously think this season is How to Get Away with Murder's version of Captain America's Civil War because, yeah, it's about to go down. So this video is going to be about episode 11 of How to Get Away with Murder's 6th season titled The Reckoning. It'll include a recap mixed in with some predictions of where I and you think the show could be going, and yes, there will be spoilers. But before we get started, thank you for watching. I post new videos weekly, so if you like them, don't forget to hit subscribe and that thumbs up to see more videos like this one. I also do take my top 3 favorite comments or predictions from my last video, then feature them at the end here, so be sure to stick around for that. Alright, this episode was a lot less manic, which means this video will be a lot less chaotic. Hopefully. This time, though, we're going to track the episode character by character, and we're going to be starting with our girl Annalise. So we open up on Annalise and she's in jail, but quickly becomes apparent that it's a dream when a baby starts crying. There's something about her trying to get to the baby, but she can't. She's always being held back, and this ties in a little bit later, so remember that. Anyway, she wakes up, and it turns out she's at home with her mom, Ophelia. And before we move on, I want to talk about the scene where Annalise calls Tegan at 3 in the morning. And you know, they're talking about legal stuff, but they be flirting too. And this scene all but confirmed, for me anyway, that Tegan does indeed have a thing for Annalise. And please, for the love of all that is sacred, let those two end up together in the end. Okay, we're gonna loop back around to this too. Anyway, it turns out Annalise has been back for about a week now. The FBI got her on some charges of fleeing the country under a false name or something like that. The point is, Annalise is back and she's under house arrest and her mom is there. Also keep in mind that this takes place on Asher's funeral day, in which none of them are going to because all the reasons. And fast forward and Tegan becomes AK's lawyer slash co-counsel or something like that. I really don't know how law works. The point is they want to file for something called a bill of particulars. Yeah, I really don't know what it is either, but essentially it would get Annalise access to view all the charges against her, which in turn she would see if she was being charged for Sam, which in turn the only reason they could charge her for Sam is if they had someone testifying against her as a witness, which in turn she would find out that Connor and Michaela signed an immunity deal. Are you keeping up? Now we finally get an Annalise Keating scene I was missing so terribly in the last episode.
The government is deliberately hiding its real case to deprive me of my Fifth Amendment right to due process. Now, if Miss Montes needs a review of that law, I'm sure one of my students can tutor her.
And of course the motion gets approved because it's Annalise, and then Annalise, Bonnie, and Frank meet, and then Bonnie and Frank are just like, the kids are being shady, they probably signed some sort of deal, and Annalise is like, you know what, you're probably right, but we don't know that yet. So then Bonnie and Frank talk, and they're talking about leaving town, and Bonnie's like, yo, what if Laurel comes back? And Frank's like, nah, it's always been you. Annalise is the one that's been keeping them there. Not like forcing them to stay there, but because they're loyal, you know? Anyway, while all this is going on, Miss Ophelia's out there running amok, forcing Annalise to eat, all up in Annalise's business, running to Nate's house, trying to convince him to take back Anime, and then she and Annalise talk about Annalise's sexuality. Wait, what? So yeah, Annalise and her mom discuss Eve, and it's actually a really good scene. It takes place while they're lying in bed, and Ophelia's just asking questions, and then Annalise is allowing herself to be vulnerable. And it eventually ends with Ophelia accepting Annalise for who she is, and it was just done incredibly well. I'd like to think this gives me hope that Annalise will get a happy ending. I don't know, maybe getting acceptance from her mom will help her open up and then really just see that Tegan's been there waiting for her the whole time, you know? Answering the phone at 3 in the morning and letting out longing sighs of love before they hang up. And before we move on, I do just want to say, I do like that scene where Ophelia goes to see Nate and basically puts Nate in his place because he's kind of bugging me right now. So yeah, Annalise, Bonnie, and Frank get to review the charges, and naturally they put together the whole immunity deal thing. And so, of course, you know, Annalise just invites the kids over. Sounds like a great idea. So Oliver, Connor, and Michaela decide to opt out of Asher's funeral as well because, you know, murder suspects. Anyway, they decide to pay tribute by drinking, eating cookies, and then stressing about Annalise finding out about the immunity deal. Throughout all of this, they're really just sticking to their guns. I mean, they're talking with their lawyers, they're grieving over Asher, and that's really it. Except we do find out who killed Asher. Before that, though, Michaela, Connor, and Oliver do decide to go see Annalise when she invites them over. Not really decide, but the FBI just really forced it on them because they still have to show face, regardless of having the immunity deal, because it's in the fine print. So when they get to Annalise's house, there's this really cute scene with Ophelia and the kids, and then Annalise low-key interrogates them. Of course, they lie, which, of course, then means Annalise knows they're lying. Right after this, Annalise and Bonnie have a little chit-chat, and they finally reveal where Annalise went when she turned the car around. She went to see Bonnie. But if you remember correctly, I mean, Annalise was alone when she got on the plane, so Bonnie claims she went to Annalise's house to tell her about Asher being the mole, so there's that. But Annalise does believe her. So yeah, that makes one of us. Okay, so Tegan goes to see the blonde lawyer later or whatever, and she discovers that they're linking the fire that burned down Sam's house to the fire that burned down Annalise's house when she was a child. And if you remember correctly, it wasn't Annalise that burned the house down, it was Ophelia, so she could murder the scumbag that was molesting Annalise as a kid. So yeah, they linked that information back to the files that Annalise burned, which if you remember, Nate was the only one that had access to those, and he said he didn't give them to anyone, so it turns out he did. And you guessed it, Nate turned 2. He 99.99% signed an immunity deal and handed over copies of all the Denver file information to the FBI before giving it to Annalise. And he's probably protected from all the Miller stuff and then any other involvement he has, which totally makes sense why he was so bold with Bonnie in the last episode. So Ophelia overhears all of this and she lectures Annalise and is like, screw those kids, screw Nate, you need to look out for yourself. And Annalise is like, you right. Anyway, I'm pretty sure Annalise drops an F-bomb. And I'm serious, look at this.
They want to come after me. Call me an arsonist. Well, they better get ready because we're gonna burn every last one of those mother down.
Like dips to black when she says it, and I definitely thought my TV was glitching, but basically Annalise says we will destroy them all. So let's break this down. You got Annalise, her lawyer, Tegan, Bonnie, and Frank literally going up against Nate, Michaela, Connor, and then Oliver by association. There's this really cool theory I have about this, so don't let me forget to talk about it. First, we got to talk about Gabriel. Good old Gabriel. But to do that, we got to talk about Chloe. And Chloe didn't kill her brother, everyone. We know that because Chloe goes to see Gabriel because she knows that Gabriel gave Asher his phone. Why, do you ask? Well, because Asher called Chloe the night he was murdered, just like many of you suspected. She was in Atlantic City partying it up, but when she finds out that the whole gang finds out that Asher is the mole, she arranges to have a car pick him up from his apartment. Now, Chloe confirms that the FBI already knows that Gabriel gave Asher his phone. So why aren't they acting on that? Questionable. Anyway, let's stay on Asher just a little bit. Despite what I said last week, we do find out who killed Asher in this episode, but we'll get to that in a second. First, turns out Asher left a video message or memo for the Keating crew on Gabriel's phone, and speaking of Gabriel, turns out he heard Asher's murder and then saw glimpses of it from underneath his door. And it's a woman. It's definitely a woman that beats Asher to death. And when she walks down the stairs, we see that she has brunette hair. Side note, Gabriel calls his mom in a panic, and so we can probably assume that Vivian will be back at some point towards the series end. So the main point is the killer wasn't Bonnie, which, okay, but where did she go that night? Because I still don't believe she just went to Annalise's house, because quite frankly, she could have just called with an update about Asher. Anyway, Michaela, Connor, and Oliver go to Asher's place, they reminisce a bit, and then Gabriel interrupts and is like, how'd you guys get in? And Michaela's like, Laurel's key, you idiot. Pause. Do you guys remember that Michaela and Gabriel used to date? Because I completely forgot until this scene. And it really means nothing, I just kind of thought it was funny. Anyway, Michaela said Laurel, so the gears in Gabriel's head start turning. Woman, brunette hair, Asher's murderer. So yeah, Gabriel runs to the FBI and tells him he knows who the killer is. Laurel Castillo. Amidst all this, Gabriel turns his phone over to the FBI. The FBI finds the video message Asher left, and then they send it to the Keating crew. It's actually really sweet, and they do get to say goodbye to Asher and vice versa, despite the horrible circumstances they left everything that night before he was killed. Alright, so we come back to Gabriel with the FBI, and there's another agent that's gonna come and take Gabriel's Laurel Castillo statement, and a woman walks in. A brunette woman. And we've seen her before! She's the spy that's working for Xavier. You know, the one that was creeping at AK's house. She's the one that got all the paperwork on Bonnie when the governor requested it earlier this season. So it was a Castillo behind it, technically, but hold on. This woman also works for the FBI. First off, you called it. Apparently, she monitored security footage, watched everything go down, walked in, stole a fireplace poker when nobody was there, used it to kill Asher, and then wiped all the security footage. You know, I'm not 100% sure if he called her too, or she was the agent that Chloe called when she arranged to have a car pick him up. Either way, she killed him. So not only did the FBI kill Asher, but it also insinuates that the FBI, the Castillos, and Governor Burkhead are all in cahoots working together to take Annalise down. Not only that, but the entire thing was a plan. Their goal was to just turn all of Annalise's minions against her. They got Nate because they can leverage all the Miller charges, and now they have Michaela and Connor. They literally scared them into turning on Annalise. Like, it was all a trap, and Asher was essentially a pawn. That is insane. Now, it completely makes sense why we had to find out Asher's killer right away because this is going to fuel the rest of the series. Okay, before I get to the theory section, in the final scene, Gabriel rushes over to the Keating pad to tell Michaela, Connor, and Oliver he knows who killed Asher. When the murder FBI agent comes in to take Gabriel's statement, Gabriel notices her ear piercings, which match the same ear piercings he saw from the woman that was walking down the stairs after Asher was killed. Anyway, the Keating crew now know the FBI is behind it, and it was all a trap. But honestly, it was a good trap because I don't know anyone else in those same circumstances that would have made a different choice. So that was the episode. Now let's discuss some theories here. Obviously, Annalise, Tegan, Bonnie, and Frank are going to find out about this. And that's where I'm kind of excited. Now, Michaela and Connor are of course a little screwed at this point because they're going to have to testify because they signed that immunity deal, but this is what I see in my head and I kind of dig it. So I think the Keating kids are going to let Annalise know the truth, like all of it. The immunity deal, Oliver hitting Asher over the head, the FBI being behind all of it, the white security footage. After a quick "you're all idiots" by Annalise, they're going to plan. I think they're still going to take it to court, but because everyone is in the know, they're going to have to manipulate both the defense and the offense side. Meaning the kids are going to have to say what they can say without lying, but also not say enough to confirm Annalise's guilt, which she really hasn't killed anyone, so... Anyway, this just makes me so excited because it means that it's going to be this big elaborate court scene where they're going to have control in the court and be working both sides. The crew would have to think about every angle, every counter angle, how to outsmart everyone in that court, and then we'd also be getting some beautiful Annalise Keating court scenes in the process. And after finding out that the FBI is behind everything and then also behind Asher's murder, it might even turn Nate back on the Annalise's side, and this is where it gets even crazier. Imagine Annalise bringing back 2 secret witnesses that the FBI don't have access to. And you know exactly who I'm talking about. Laurel and Wes. Before we dive into that big chunk though, I do want to touch that dream that Annalise had about the baby crying in the beginning of the episode. I know Ophelia said that it symbolizes Annalise trying to be the parent that she wished she had growing up, but I actually think it symbolizes Wes. From the very beginning, Wes was always the epicenter of her protection, and the show really revolved around him, and she quote unquote failed to protect him. That dream could have been a symbolization of Annalise trying to get back to Wes. I've seen it mentioned in the comments before, but what if Annalise does know that Wes is alive and she's trying to protect him by keeping his secret? Now that we know that Tegan was behind Laurel's disappearance, it wouldn't be too far of a stretch to convince Tegan to find Laurel, and it might lead them to Laurel and Wes. Or maybe Annalise knows where Wes is hiding and she calls him out of hiding, which in turn gets Laurel out of hiding, and they can both testify. Connor and Michaela weren't there for or know about that one-on-one conversation that Wes had with Annalise where she detailed how he could get away with that murder. But tell me having Wes and Laurel back to testify in this case would not be epic. So in my mind, I see a big court scene, Annalise trying to play both sides, and then something goes wrong, the FBI gets the upper hand, and Annalise tells Tegan, yo, I think I have a backup plan. So Wes and Laurel show up, Wes testifies about the Sam case, and then Laurel testifies against her family, blowing everything out of the water and getting Annalise off free. Now, what does this mean for Michaela, Connor, and Oliver? I'm assuming because they did their part, they played their part, the immunity deal still sticks, and they get off free as well. In this fantasy, Annalise and Tegan end up together because, like I said, I feel like Ophelia accepting Annalise is foreshadowing an Annalise and Tegan relationship. Anyway, they leave, and maybe they fake their deaths in like a plane crash or something. I read that in a comment last week. And Wes speaks at Annalise's funeral because now everyone knows he's actually alive. Now, this is a bit plot holy, and I literally just made it up, so don't bash it too hard. You know, I still do think Hannah Keating could be behind it all, but somebody mentioned in the comments last week that it does seem like a bit of a stretch for one woman to be working and organizing the FBI, Governor Burkhead, and then the Castillos. But as a counter argument, I read and liked that someone said that it could just be everyone who hates Annalise teaming up to take her down. You know, the enemy of my enemy is my friend type shit. But we'll see. We have a ton more reveals ahead of us, and literally anything could happen. So that was the episode. I'm a little mad they made it seem like it was Laurel, not because I didn't think it was possible, but because I was convinced it was her as soon as I saw those damn shoes. I mean, I did say that I thought it was going to be someone who wasn't like currently starring on the show, and to be completely honest, I am a tiny bit disappointed that it wasn't one of the main characters, because I thought that might have been a cool reveal, but I thought this set up the stage for the rest of the season so much better. Now, we still have a few open loops, like where Bonnie actually was the night that Asher got murdered, because I still don't believe her. And some of y'all said that she poisoned Asher, which I was definitely on board with until I saw this episode. And we also don't know where Tegan was the night Asher was murdered and why she couldn't answer Michaela's phone call, and then on top of that, who she went to see when she went to the scene of the crime. Now, maybe they're just brushing over it and she actually went to talk to Gabriel, because Gabriel could be the only one that I could see being a client. Asher was dead. But why haven't we seen that conversation? What did she find out? What did they talk about? And we haven't seen that entire scene in its entirety yet. We also don't know what Frank found under the seat, and I still don't trust Oliver. So let me know what you think about Laurel and Wes, Tegan and Bonnie that night, what Frank possibly found under the sink, if Vivian is going to be back before the series ends, and just whatever you think is going to happen next. Also, feel free to comment below with anything that I missed. There's kind of a lot to cover in this episode. And with that said, let's move on to my top 3 favorite comments from my last video. By the way, I'm gonna paraphrase these because some of them are kind of long, but the first one comes from Kim Hall. For some reason, she thinks that the whole How to Get Away with Murder title was referring to Wes. She has a feeling that that's what the whole thing has been revolving around, even though he wasn't in most of the series after his death. Now, this could be a big possibility, and I kind of like the idea that he's the one that gets away with murder, because like I mentioned before, he is the one that the show did really center around in the beginning, and Annalise really made it a point that she was out to protect him. And this next one, and I apologize if I mispronounce her name, is from Sarita G. She noticed that the FBI didn't lay down a picture of Wes when they were going over the photos of everyone that died in connection to Sam. And that was a little strange. So she thinks Wes is not dead and the FBI has him hidden somewhere, or the FBI knows the Castillos killed Wes, yet want to go after Annalise for murder anyway, which is shady, but they're still trying to bring down Annalise any way that they can. 3. The FBI and Hannah killed Asher to frame Connor and Michaela, hoping they would turn on Annalise. 4. Wes faked his death and has been hiding out with Laurel and the baby the whole time. And this is the part that I really liked. I liked how it was tied in that Wes has kind of been the answer to every mid-season hashtag. Who killed Sam? Who shot Annalise? Who's under the sheets? So finally, the last one is from Akilah Wiggins, and it's a long one, so I suggest either pausing the video and reading it or going to the comment section of the last video and checking it out in its entirety. It says that Laurel's mom and Dominic are the ones that faked Wes's death. And Sandrine was indeed killed, which is why Laurel left so quickly. Also, Wes was in contact with Dominic because he was concerned about the relationship between Laurel and Frank back in season 3 or 4. And essentially, Jorge wanted Dominic to kill Wes, but because Dominic was working with Sandrine, he didn't actually kill Wes, and he faked Wes's death with Sandrine. Anyway, I just really like this because it connected a lot of different things and legitimately made sense. You know, I'm actually thinking now that they could possibly actually pull all of this off. I know I mentioned in my Wes is Alive video that I didn't quite think they were going to be able to cohesively bring this all together within 6 episodes, but my faith in the murder writers is being rewarded because I'm actually really excited how everything is kind of developing. Anyway, thank you so much for watching as always, especially if you made it all the way to the end. Don't forget to comment below with your theories, thoughts, predictions, or whatever else. I do love reading them on a Tuesday evening with a glass or possibly a bottle of wine, so keep them coming. If you enjoyed this video and you do want to see more, you know, you can go ahead and click one here. And don't forget to hit that thumbs up, it really helps me out. And then subscribe beside the notification bell. Until next time, shine on, you crazy diamonds.